Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsay. Realism in your comic books. Not just your comic books, but your comic book properties, your movies, your streamers, sometimes your primetime shows. But this desire to make comic books insanely realistic, and mostly kids, when we say realistic, we mean violent. And we have The Boys to thank for that. We have various other books to thank for that over the years, but I would say really The Boys is the one that sort of, for mainstream culture, turned the idea of the concept of superheroes on its head. It's something that Alan Moore did years before. So it's nothing new. Let's put it that way. This is nothing new. It's been happening for a long time. And as comic book fans, we are used to it. We know this is how it goes. We're not dumb. We know this is how the game is played. There's a lot of people out there truly want these comic book tropes to be sort of exposed and talked about. And, here's what I'll say. There's an audience for this stuff, and I enjoy some of it. We've never covered The Boys here. Don't know if we will. I tapped out personally. Because in my mind, it just became more about shock value than it did actually telling the story, which is, I believe, in my opinion, what Walking Dead did at some point, that it just became more about the shock of it instead of actually feeling something for the characters. Maybe no one else believes that about either series, and if so, that's fine. If I'm the exception, that's fine as well. But as I said, I tapped out on both. But I have not tapped out on Invincible. If Invincible were live action, with all the blood and the chaos and the mayhem, would I have tapped out by now? I cannot answer that. And I don't have a weak stomach. It's not that. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. It's fine. But there are moments when watching the let's turn comic books on their heads thing, there's moments when I look at it from a distance and go, wow, is this a story? Or is this just, last week we had 3 buckets of blood. This week we better have 5. Like, for me personally, I don't really like that too awful much. So if Invincible were live action, would I still be along for the ride? I cannot answer that. But I will tell you that I thoroughly enjoy this series. And yes, it's bloody, and no, it's not real. Just like the live action stuff is also not real. I get it. Everybody breathe. It's just a big baby talking, I guess. Maybe that's what I am these days. But we've got stuff to talk about because today we're going to talk about Invincible, the series on Amazon Prime. We'll probably talk about the comic here and there, but mostly we'll be talking about the series. So if you're a fan, hopefully you'll take something away from this and you will agree with some of our takes. And you may not, but we'll see how it goes. But let's do this, shall we? Invincible is an adult animated superhero television series, boy, I'll say, created by Robert Kirkman for the streaming service Amazon Prime Video, based on the Image Comics comic book series of the same name he co-created with Corey Walker and Ryan Ottley. It is produced by Skybound Entertainment, Winsun Sky Entertainment, Point Grey Pictures, and Amazon MGM Studios. The series follows teenager Mark Grayson and his transformation into a superhero under the guidance of his father, Nolan Grayson / Omni-Man, the most powerful superhero on the planet. During his transformation, Mark finds himself struggling between his personal life and superhero duties and is forced to prove that he can be the hero that his father is, unaware that there is a sinister conspiracy going on that threatens the world and will leave him questioning the true nature of his role. As we said, this is the Amazon Prime series, and yes, created by Robert Kirkman. That Robert Kirkman. Speaking of The Walking Dead, huh? Running time of each episode is around 45 to 55 minutes. And of course, March 25th, 2021, so the show just recently celebrated an anniversary. being on the air. But that is your lowdown for Invincible, this TV series. Phil, we talked about this here and there. Never really spent too much time on it. Never did an episode about it, but we're going to tackle it here today. What's your feeling? What's your take overall on the series? Is it doing the book justice? I'm sure it's not 100% the same. What's your thoughts overall as we get started?
I never actually read the Invincible comics.
Hmm.
I read some Image books, but I do think it's awesome that the run that Image had at one point. Um, at one point, of course, well, not even at one point. For the entirety of the time I've been reading comic books, it's been the big two. It's been DC and Marvel. And Image's rise at one point, and like the rise of creator-owned comics, was such a big time period for a lot of creators. I mean, yeah, look at what that did for Bendis. I mean, I don't think we get the Bendis run in Marvel if we didn't get some of his independent stuff like Jinx or some of the other stuff that he did. So, particularly Robert Kirkman and what this has done for Robert Kirkman's career, you could argue that outside of those two big companies, he's one of the most recognizable comic names of that decade. Um, and I just think it's great that something like Invincible, that's not a mainstream IP, is become like this big pop culture thing now. I mean, after the first season happened and the final episode with Omni Man and Invincible and him lecturing him, and that meme of him telling him to think was everywhere on social media. Um, that's just really cool for what that means for Kirkman as a creator. Of course, Ryan Otley, who did a lot of the work, artwork for it. It's just cool to see. It's kind of like seeing a independent wrestler make it.
Hmm. That's you know what? That's a good call. And if you know anything about Kirkman, you know that he didn't sell The Walking Dead as a zombie. That he sold it as science fiction. Otherwise, they wouldn't have picked it up or whatever, and and moved forward with it. So I like Kirkman. I think he's a smart guy. Obviously, he's very business savvy. He knows what he's doing. My personal feelings about The Walking Dead show aside, I was under the impression you collected Image. Let me tell you this. I was around for the birth of that brand, of that print. And man, what an exciting time to be a fan, dude.
Yeah.
And you talk about like the original 7 founding members. You had Jim Valentino, Mark Silvestri, Will Spertasio, and then of course the great Eric Larson, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and Todd McFarlane. And man, they turned the industry on its head. And we were all collecting books in the 90s. I can't say I was collecting them thinking they were going to be worth money, because I was always a collector anyway, and I loved reading and I still read. But like, man, a lot of people around me, Phil, were like, oh, this is how we're going to pay for our kids' college one day, these books. And it didn't quite turn out that way, Phil. So
yeah, it never really does.
no.
Yeah, I didn't really start on the initial Image boom, but I knew a lot of people that liked Image. The only Image book that I can think of that I read regularly was Saga, and I'm sure this saga is going to turn into this big pop culture phenomenon at some point. I know the creators were saying that it wasn't made as something that could be adapted into a movie or a TV show, but the book is so good and it's so like quirky and weird. There's no way I can't see it being turned into a TV show someday. I read some of that. Um, I read some of Hickman's East of West stuff and some of his mini series he did over there because Hickman's awesome. Uh, I can't remember the name of the book with the kids that went to the school and that turned into the TV show.
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking Runaways, but that's Marvel.
Yeah, no, it's the kids that went to Deadly Class. Is that it?
Ah, there you go.
Deadly
Yeah.
Class. Yeah. I read some of Deadly Class.
Because isn't Umbrella Academy Dark Horse or no?
I believe so. Yeah, Deadly Class is what I'm thinking of. I believe that's the Image book written
Mm.
by Rick Remender. I keep wanting to say remember. Rick Remender.
Yeah, I've got I got plenty of long boxes full of Image books. Let me tell you. But yeah, a lot of the classics, like the originals, like Spawn and Youngblood and Shadowhawk and Savage Dragon and Wildcats, of course. A lot of that stuff's really good. Tribe is in there. Wetworks is in there. Man, this stuff's coming back to me now. But yeah, just for their time, a lot of shoulder pads, a lot of pockets on Liefeld's characters. Right, that's the gimmick. The big chest, that haircut that he gave. Who's the archer in Youngblood? I can never remember his name, but sort of that Rob Liefeld haircut he gave all his characters.
Yes. What a time period. I don't think that I can remember any single episodes of the Wildcats TV show, but I probably know the entire theme song.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, man. Sometimes I forget about that show, dude.
How could you forget the theme song and just like the rap over it? Come on.
Yeah, right. Shaft. How did I forget that character's name? The guy's name is Shaft.
Yes.
I mean, the coolest member of Youngblood, as we know, is Chapel. Just absolutely freaking wonderful. What a great design. One of the coolest looking designs of a character Rob Liefeld's ever done is Chapel.
Yeah. But yeah, I love what Image represents
Yeah.
for a lot of creators. They've gone over there and created their own IPs, and seeing those turn into successful adaptations where the creators are getting their credit and hopefully getting the uh income and the money that they deserve off of this, because sometimes the Marvel IPs, those are not their creations, and so I have to assume that Kirkman is getting a bigger cut of the stuff that is getting adapted, whether it be Walking Dead or something like Invincible. And there's so many other brilliant creators that went over there and did stuff like David Walker and Bitter Root and some of the other things.
Yeah, that was the goal. As you said, you nailed it, that this was for creators. And like the story, by the way, we may have to eventually tackle the story of Image, because there's a couple of excellent documentaries out there. One's really good that goes into it. So I'm absolutely up for that. But it's this idea of, when they got together, they were just sick of, they weren't getting paid enough from Marvel and DC both, like just weren't getting enough at all. And it was this thing where, like Liefeld co-created Deadpool and then doesn't get anything from it. McFarlane does all this work on Spider-Man. He gets pennies compared to what Marvel's getting. I'm like, these guys are either rescuing characters or creating new characters from nothing. And they get nothing. It's like, as a comic fan, Phil, that's one of the things that we've talked about for years, is that creators need to get paid. Like, this is a big thing. You've got creators who die penniless as old men. Meanwhile, their creations are on the silver screen in theaters across the world, making, $1 billion on a movie, and this guy got nothing from it, So that's a real problem. And it's, Fabian and Rob both got their name added to Deadpool. And then, of course, Bill Finger, they finally corrected that injustice with Batman, because that thing where Bob Kane was, rest in peace, everybody. Nothing personal. But, claiming credit when everybody kind of knew in the industry it was Bill that did this. It wasn't Bob. So, yeah. Well, look, creators got to get paid, kids. That's what we're saying. So, yeah, I was collecting Image from day one, really. And I remember the first comic convention that year in 91, 92 when they first announced and when they first became a major brand, a major third option. What a great time, man, for sure. In terms of the show, I do enjoy the show quite a bit. And I think that they do a great job storytelling. I will say that not every single scene is a bloodbath. Not every single scene is a shoot 'em up or a throwdown. They do a lot in terms of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I think the balance is pretty good. Honestly, I don't think it's tilted too much in one direction or another. I think there's a pretty good balance there of action and, a little bit of comedy but a lot of drama. But I thoroughly enjoy it, honestly. So the animation, let's talk about the animation, man, because this show looks just like the book. You know what I mean? I love that they kept it clean. It's really flawless animation. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah. I love that there was such a clear choice in terms of just like the visuals of the show and just how these character moves, how graphic the violence is, how it looks. There's such a very apparent attempt to replicate what the comics were. It isn't just like an adaptation in name only. Like this feels like an Invincible book.
Yeah, it does really. The whole thing does. And shout out to Wind Sun Sky Entertainment and its partner company Skybound North, co-producing and animating the series. And Kurtman praised the work of the show's animation studio's Maven Image platform. The series title sequence is recognized by appearing rightward. By the way, this shtick that they do when every episode happens where they time it for someone to say the word invincible is great. I love that little running gag they have.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I love that. I love how unique they've gone with this. It's not just that the show is incredibly violent, but just the look of it, things like that, and like the splash pages and stuff. It really does a lot to make Invincible feel like a distinct comic book adaptation.
And we don't really, we're just going to bounce around here, right? But what was your thoughts on the most recent season? Because, man, it looks like Mark is turning heel, dude. Like he is giving in to that alien DNA he's got happening, the Viltrumite DNA. Dude, I don't know specifically, precisely what happens in the book, but I mean, what's the next season going to look like, man? Are we going to see this kid like making a turn for the worse?
I think the third season, the most recent season, is probably the best season of the show so far.
Yeah.
I think it's in terms of overarching story that they tell, the ending of it, and a lot of the stuff that they've teased for next season. I think this is going to be the season that really pushes this show over the edge and makes it like one of the greats.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. It feels like he's struggling with that side of himself. And he tells his brother at the end that, the next time my family is threatened or I'm threatened, I'm going to kill them. Like he's not pulling any punches, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know how that's going to play out. Again, I don't know what happened in the book, to be fair. So I'm not real sure what's going on, but we shall see, I suppose. Let's talk about the cast, man, because there's some Walking Dead alums here in this show for sure. Starting right off the bat with the guy that voices Mark. This is Stephen Ewan from Walking Dead, who was Glenn. Don't even talk to me about how Glenn died in the show. Holy Lord. He plays Mark Grayson here. I think this is a great choice, man. What do you think about Stephen's work as the main character?
I think he's great, and he had quite a task ahead of him this season because they tackled the Invincible War stuff. He had to voice more than one Mark, and I appreciate that he attempted to make every single one of them sound different and to do something unique with them. It wasn't just him doing the exact same voice with everyone.
Yeah, that's fair. I think his voice sounds young, which is good. That's what they need. So I appreciated that. I think he's doing well. There's been talk about a live action Invincible. I don't know if we're going to get there. It's hard to believe they wouldn't at least take a stab at it. So Lord knows who would play Mark as a teenager. I think in the show isn't he 19 in this season? I think, or am I too old?
I think he is. He's either 18 or 19 because he's supposed to be in his college years.
That's right. Yeah, because I think they talked about he discovered his powers at 17, and I think his mom at one point said that was 2 years ago. So I think he's 19 in this season. But yeah, I think he's fantastic. I just, he was one of my favorite characters of Walking Dead when I was watching religiously. So I appreciate the fact that he's here and he's doing that voice, of course, the main character. We should point out, kids, that this show was originally optioned by Universal Pictures in 2017 as a feature film, which I do remember that talk going around. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were developing before it got picked up by Amazon as a TV series. Seth Rogen is in this show, kids, as Alan the Alien. I love that character, man. One of the best characters in the show.
Yeah, I think that Seth fits perfectly with that character. Man, the amount of great actors and voice actors they've managed to get for this show is really quite staggering. Like you said, all the people they've gotten from Walking Dead or these other major TV shows. I mean, getting Aaron Paul this season was a big get. And the character he's doing is perfect for him as well.
Mm.
Because if you have not seen this season, he's playing Powerplex from the comic, and Powerplex has a big axe to grind with Invincible, and of course the meme from Breaking Bad of Aaron Paul yelling, "He can't keep getting away with it." That's what I immediately thought with Captain Powerplex. I was like, "No, this is perfect."
Man, what a tragic character, dude. Man alive, what a tragic character. Like, you can kind of understand, you can really understand why he would come after Mark. Not for nothing. He holds his own pretty well, Phil, against Mark. But, Mark's also pulling his punches, which is fair to say. So, yeah. And by the way, speaking of Walking Dead here, kids, we know that Stephen Yeun, of course, is here as Mark. Lauren Cohen, who portrayed his wife Maggie, is War Woman in the show. Lenny James, who was Morgan, portrays Darkwing. Chad Coleman, who played Tyrese, is Martian Man. We also have Ross Marquand, or Marquand, I think, who played Aaron, is Immortal / Aquarius. And we have Michael Kudlitz as Red Rush. And of course, he was Abraham in the Walking Dead show. Green Ghost is voiced by Sonequa Martin Green, who played Sasha. And Black Samson is voiced by Carrie Payton, who played King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead. Did you ever get in a Walking Dead show, by the way?
I can't say that I did. I kind of missed the boat on it. There was a time period where I didn't have cable,
Hmm.
so I did not keep up with some of the AMC shows or like the Showtime or HBO shows. But I feel like I've gone back and watched a bunch of shows that I did not see, and I'm like, oh, that's what people loved about this. Like I was late to the Breaking Bad train as
Hmm.
well, but I've now binge watched the entire series.
Walking Dead. I tapped out in season 3. I think I didn't. It didn't take me long. It was the year they went to Terminus. I just tapped out. It was too much. I'm a baby. I am, dude. Like if it's very if it's very graphic, dude, there's just some stuff I don't want to walk around carrying in my head. And I know it's special effects. I know none of it's real. I get it. I don't know, dude. I don't know. People who can process that stuff and not take it with them, I think that's great. I think if you got to, that's healthy. But for me, I don't know. I can't process it. It's like I know it's not real, but it just stays with me longer than it should, man. I can't help it. Totally can't help it. Well, how do you do with that, by the way? Like gore and horror. Are you into any of that stuff, or does it just depend?
Yeah, I really like horror movies, and so a
Hmm.
lot of stuff doesn't bother me. Uh, of course, it depends on how far they take it, but it usually doesn't bother me too much.
Hmm.
It usually the trauma stuff when people do the mass killings and like all of this heavily going into like trauma and putting a character through its worst paces possible
Hmm.
just to have them come out of it. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of that.
Yeah, it's the psychological stuff. That stuff
Yeah.
tends to stay with me.
And of course I understand the irony that I am of course a massive Spider-Man fan, and you could arguably say no one has gone through more trauma as a character than Peter Parker.
Boy, you said that right. Yeah, all the time. Kid can't catch a break. Doesn't matter what happens. By the way, we were talking off mic about Sterling K. Brown. He's done a voice here. So is Damon Honsu. Rest in peace to him. Mahershala Ali has done a voice here on this show. And they've, like you said, they've got some heavy hitters to come on board, man. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I thought they all did great. I thought Sterling was great as the big bad for season 2.
Hmm.
Angstrom's back this season. Um, I think he did a great job in the voice. Of course, the well, I can't say the main bad guy of the season, but the big surprise bad that we get in the final episode is also voiced by a Walking Dead actor.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Negan himself. Man, have you seen the clip going around of him in the recording booth doing the voice? It's really good.
So cool. He's so into it.
Yeah.
Uh, what a like when you look at his career and the amount of stuff he's done just for all this genre. I know sometimes people are like, you rarely see like an actor that's done multiple comic book movies or that's stuck around in the genre and that's worked out for him. But I mean, this guy, like from Watchmen, to, like you said, Walking Dead, to this. He's contributed so much to just comic book movies and TV.
I love it. I love that. I mean, as we know, a lot of the Marvel guys completely embrace those characters. And I love that Morgan is like, he doesn't run from it. I love that. Like, we've seen people work in comic book roles before and like, I'm never coming back. Like, I'll never do it again. Like, I didn't like this, didn't like that, didn't like this, didn't. But for the guys and gals who stick around, I don't know. It's the nerd in me. It's like, yeah, that's right. Stay loyal. We love you. Like, it's kind of where I'm at with him too. I agree with you. He's found one of his. It's a niche for him, I'm sure. But man, it's worked out well for him,
Yeah.
no doubt. Let's talk about Omni Man, dude. I know J.K. Simmons. He could do anything, and I know that voice. But he is freaking great here. And like in the beginning, we should say Kirkman wanted Simmons to play Cecil, perhaps. But Simmons was like, I only want to do Omni Man. And buddy, what a great choice, man. What do you think about Simmons here?
Yeah, when I think about it, he would have made a perfect Cecil.
Yeah.
I think he definitely would have worked well, but at this point, I can't even imagine anybody else voicing Omni Man. Uh, I mean, the first season was just so pivotal, and like that first season, and how so many clips of it ended up online or turned into memes, and like, yeah, I just can't imagine anybody else playing that character at this point.
Well, he's got a very earthy tone to his voice. Like I don't want to age him and say it's grandpa, but there's something there that's very warm. But like,
Yeah,
man, when he wants to be sinister, he can, and I think it works. I think that's the great quality his voice has.
yeah, very distinguished.
Mm-hmm.
And he can do the softer moments. We've seen him do that multiple times, but we've seen him be like maniacal as well. Like, I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the great things about Whiplash. What a great movie. Just him torturing this poor kid in these classes, and he's just so incredibly entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a lot of that here. I mean, just from the first episode when he fights the Guardians of the Globe and just like single-handedly kills them, which that animation on that scene is so great. Uh this could have easily just been like violence for the sake of violence. He's just like beating all of these guys senseless, but man, the way that that scene was put together, animated, directed, just masterfully done.
Mm. I agree. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. Simmons is, yeah, he's fantastic. By the way, let me ask you this: do you think it's possible that in the next season we get a moment where Omni Man is having to calm Mark down because Mark's going too far?
I do think we're heading in that direction because it feels like the big Omni Man face turn is coming.
Yeah. I can't wait to see that, man. Because like Mark just continues to get more and more. Man, that death scene when he's transported to that other dimension or that other world, that was insane. Like, and of course the doc puts himself back together, but man, what a vicious, vicious scene that was.
Yes. Yeah, I love that we've seen everything he's gone through, and like the weight of being invincible, like how much has taken a toll on him for 3 seasons now.
Mm-hmm.
And just this idea is that all the other alternate marks are evil. Like none of them are good guys. None of
Right.
the other marks are good guys. All of them are evil. He's the only one. And when you think about it, it's definitely that nature versus nurture thing. And how much of this is just that, it's the right circumstances for him and the right person in his life and his mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah. But dude, there was that one evil Mark that was saying, "Oh, it's a shame she's not home. I would like to have killed her again." Like, dude, that is cold blooded, man.
Yeah, yeah. Some of those marks were vicious. The one where he sees Eve and he was like, I've always wanted to kill you again.
Yeah.
I,
God.
I always hated you.
Yeah, dude, that is insane. Yeah, but you're right. Like that moment where a few of the marks were, they were having a problem because they missed their mom, like they hadn't seen her in years or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting that, And you said earlier Spider-Man. I think there's some parallels here too. And I don't think I don't want to shoehorn it in and force it to, I don't want to force the comparison if it's not there. But I see a few different things like, Peter at any given time could have went dark. He could have, taken the easy way out, but he chose to, he just chose to not do that. And I see that here with Mark to some degree. Plus, with Mark being as young as he is, easily influenced by other people, not yet technically a man, but, still sort of on the way there as a young Peter always was. But, Peter's support system, he's got a few friends that keep him going and kind of like, Mark does. And then Mark's got issues with his parents to some degree, and where Peter's parents aren't really in the picture. But man, what do you think about this storyline with all the Marks, man? I mean, I think it's interesting to see the different uniforms, and like you said, they are just despicable, like smiling and laughing and just enjoying flat out murder. It's crazy.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Spider-Man comparisons, but that's all credit to Stan Lee. He created one of the most influential comic book characters of
Hmm.
all time. Because he was really the first one to come in and do a teenage superhero and do stories that revolved around who he was outside of the suit, not just him going and saving lives, but what did it mean to his regular life, and how was his regular life affected by his life as Spider-Man? And so it's impossible to not see influences here in Invincible and so many other teen superhero books or TV shows.
Yeah, like, look, despite what people say, and I know for years there's been whispers and buzz about Stan was this and Stan was that. I'm like, look, we don't get the modern comic book business if Stan Lee didn't go out there hustling as much as he did, Phil. There's just no way.
For sure. To go with the other wrestling comparison, um, when the Hogan heel turn happened, it changed the wrestling business because it
Mhm.
forced the business to evolve. And that's how we got the Attitude Era. And then we got, you know, whatever you want to call the era right after that, the reality era. Like it was that thing that transitioned from that era into the modern era. And I think you could make the same conversation about what Stan did with Marvel Comics at one point and how that was the thing that ushered comics into the modern era.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, at any given time, you can sort of plot out the evolution, the natural evolution of comics into mainstream media. And Stan's got a major hand in that. And then, you can mark Frank Miller's arrival with The Dark Knight
Yes.
Returns, Alan Moore's Watchmen, a couple of other events that happened throughout the timeline, and then getting to where we are today. That's a good call.
Yes. But yeah, I think the Invincible War is such a great concept. I mean, it's another you can, you know, make the comparisons to like the Clone Wars and other things similar.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a great concept. A lot of stuff is diving into the multiverse stuff now. It's very funny that it seems like the multiverse stuff by between this and MCU and other things has become like the new pop culture thing.
It has.
um, but I think it's dope that we got this, and it looks like we got like such a great depiction of it. It doesn't feel like they rushed past bits of it. Of course, you couldn't do all of the tie-ins. I was excited to see Tech Jacket. Um,
Yeah.
he didn't get to speak or anything, but when we did see Tech Jacket in space, I was like, "Oh, great! They're finally using him," because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were going to see him in the show.
But speaking of characters, man, the cast list for this show is massive. And dude, it's a who's who of Hollywood in this, and also Seth and voice acting for sure. It is crazy how many people are in this. Going from the top, as Adam Eve is Jillian Jacobs. What do you think about, like Mark is not with her, but like, they finally put them together in this season. Is this going to work out? Like, yes, they've got a lot more in common than Mark and just a regular girl, or that, Adam Eve would have with somebody else. But I don't know, man. Part of this feels like in another version, like if this thing starts to go dark, could she go dark with him? Would she pull him out? I don't know, man. Is this a good match, in other words?
Yeah, I think that it feels earned.
Mm,
Because we did get to follow this for 2 seasons to get to this point, and we did get the stuff with Mark and his first girlfriend. So it doesn't feel like just they were just thrusted together. And of course, it's following the same trajectory and timeline of the comics,
mm,
so it works. But I also love that it feels like Eve humanizes him in some ways.
yeah.
Um, because the thing that really pushes him over the edge in the final episode of season 3 is he has gone through a lot, but I think him thinking that she was dead, that was the thing. And I think the stinger at the end of the episode of him saying, if anybody threatens my family or loved ones again, I'm gonna kill them.
Hmm.
Because he realizes like he got this close to losing her, and he's like, I can't let that happen again.
Yeah. Oof. I'm telling you, I think season 4 is going to be interesting. I think we're going to get that weird heel face dynamic with him and his dad, where his dad, of all people, is trying to talk sense into him after all the heinous stuff. By the way, you talk about making a comeback. Omni Man killed a lot of people and did it gleefully. Dude, what are the like? I don't know. Does he deserve redemption? Like, he kind of deserves death, to be honest. And I think in the books he is dead. I think. Like, does he deserve redemption here, man?
That's a tough one because we see the effect that he's had on Oliver and
Hmm.
introducing Oliver this season, and how Oliver doesn't understand. He just sees him as his dad. He only knows his experiences with him.
Hmm.
And it's always so tough to get into of like, who is somebody really? Do we judge somebody based on just our experiences with them or the totality of who they are?
Mm.
And this is a guy that's done terrible things, that's killed multiple people, but he's also saved a lot of lives. And he also did have a hand in raising both Oliver and Mark. Um, so can you just erase those parts of who he is just because of the bad parts as well? I don't really know the answer to that. It's a complicated question.
Well, and plus, he's never been human before. And
Yes.
it's almost like he's learning how, because there's that moment in the cell, because he's locked up with Alan in another cell in this prison. He's like, I think I miss my wife. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's learning human emotion. Like, he's flat out saying, I was wrong. Like, I shouldn't have done what I did. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, is this really happening right now? It's crazy.
Yes. Um, yeah, I mean, and if it was anybody else other than Mark, I mean, we saw how savagely he killed the Guardians of the Globe.
Yeah.
And I mean, he could have easily killed Mark as well.
Yeah.
But the fact that Mark reached him in the last episode of season 1, that shows that was the start of the face turn. But that's why I'm like, it's so complicated because I can't say that I believe he should be totally forgiven for everything he did, but
Mm.
he came to Earth with a specific mission, and that's what he was there for. That's all he knew. And, that wasn't a plan to meet his wife and have Mark. Um, it wasn't a plan for any of this. And so, I don't know. It's complicated. And I think that's what makes his character so fascinating. He's a complex character.
And man, that big fight between the two of them in season 1. I mean, I don't know if you pull that off in live action, and it would probably be the bulk of your budget because it was insane when he held Mark by the back of the head and pushed him through that subway car, like pushed him through people. And I'm like, and it's animated, right? That's of course, but it's like, this is one of the most vicious things I've ever seen one character do to another character. This is insanity, man.
Yeah, I love that it was mirrored in the last episode of this
Yes.
season, and just how that affected Mark. Yeah, I'm not sure they could pull that off in a live action movie.
Yeah, I just think that's your budget. I don't know. I don't know how they do it.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
Zazie Beetz is here as Amber. Great voice. Again, they've got the right cast here, man. The core cast that comes back, the Guardians' voices are fantastic. And there's a lot here, kids, so bear with us. Andrew Rannells is William Clockwell. The Global Defense Agency, Cecil, is the great Walton Goggins. I love Walton Goggins. I don't know if you ever get into the Righteous Gemstones, but he of course, he was also in Fallout. He's kind of one of the hot actors of the moment. Dude, Goggins is great, man. His portrayal of Cecil is fantastic.
Yeah, great actor, great voice acting in the show. I have not seen any of Righteous Gemstones, but he was great in that other HBO show, Vice Principals. Very funny in that show.
Yeah.
Um, and he's been very funny in multiple things I've seen him in. But yeah, he's great here. Very subdued compared to some of his more comedic stuff. And I think that that's what makes him such a great voice actor. Is he's shown a lot of versatility here.
Oh, dude, 100%. He's great. Yeah. Donald Ferguson, which I love Ferguson's backstory. And he finds out that he's not even barely human at this point. That is Chris Diamantopoulos, I think. Great. I mean, I like this Ferguson character more than I thought I would, honestly.
Yeah, I think the stuff with him is great. He's everything we're saying about Omni-Man and how, the gray area of knowing the terrible things that Cecil has done, but still following him. And, he's another one. I don't know quite how I feel about it because I totally understand Mark's grief with him and not wanting to work with him anymore, which is very tense in the first few episodes of this season. But I also get it. I also get how far is too far. I know he's looking at it this like, I'm doing all of this with the intent to save the world. I got to make some hard decisions. And some of them hard decisions is kind of like, I don't know. Like at the end of this season, he makes another decision. And I just can't see this working out well for him.
Yeah. I love that they will come back and revisit certain plot points. And yeah, that's one for sure. And by the way, like Mark's relationship with the GDA, Cecil is not an innocent guy, right? No. Like and I love that we finally got his origin story in this season. But like, man, I'm kind of with Cecil. Like when he's explaining, what are we supposed to do with prisoners? Are we just supposed to say that they don't deserve anything? That they're just trash? We just kill them, we throw them away like they never existed. Like, what would you like us to do with them? Like, I don't know that I fully agree with what he's saying, but he believes it. And on some level, it does make some sense, man.
No, and that's what, same vein as Omni-Man, where it's like, I can understand his intent and I can understand where he's coming from, but it's like, I don't know. Because his whole thing is we're supposed to reform people. That's what jail is supposed to be for. It's supposed to reform people. And I'm not just going to, take somebody that could be useful in helping us save the world and have them rot in a cell. Not when I can probably use them to a better end. And I get that, but some of these people, that's why I'm like, it just goes back to that question of, when can somebody be forgiven and how much is too far?
Yeah. And who determines how much is too far, by the way?
Correct. And that has definitely been an idea that has been mined constantly in more modern comics. I mean, Watchmen, who's watching the Watchmen, that has definitely been something that has been discussed multiple times in this media. And I think that that's what makes Invincible such a great property and such a great show as well, is that it does tackle a lot of these tropes in a different way. Because we talked about the comparisons to Spider-Man, but also just the comparisons to Superman and just having, this trope of an alien that came to Earth and just this idea, well, he would absolutely come here and assimilate and want to be like us and decide that he wants to save us. No, who's to decide that? Maybe this person came here and would just want to kill us all.
Yeah, and there's depending on what scientists you're listening to, a lot of really smart people out there are like, look, it makes no sense if a civilization were that smart enough to have achieved interstellar travel and that advanced, that they probably wouldn't be capable of hate and revenge and let's kill for the sake of killing. And I'm thinking that sounds great. But also, if they're that advanced, are they also cold and heartless and wouldn't see death as being that big of a deal and wouldn't mind that they wiped us all out? That's a problem too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance that uh, another civilization could only see Earth as a means of more resources,
Yeah.
and we're in the way of that. But I've said for years that part of the part of the story of this and people thinking that aliens would come here and try and conquer us is just Americans' beliefs that somebody will show up and do to us what we did to the Native Americans.
Well, that's true too. That is so true. It's not funny. Just
It's absolutely a fear of something happening to us that this country has a history of doing to other people.
yeah.
And to be fair, not just this country, what multiple civilizations have done to other people.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's the fear of that what you've done to other people being done to you. That's a great way to put it. It's a shame, but you're right. Like it's a shame
Yeah.
that you're right, but you're right.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of Americans that live in constant fear of chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah. 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 Well, what's the Johnny Cash songs? Chickens that come home. Yeah. There's a man going around taking names. What was the Johnny Cash? I don't think it was When the Man Comes Around. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a chilling song, dude. Just saying. By the way, that's another road to go down. We've also got Callista Flockhart is here as April. D.A. Sinclair in season 1 was Ezra Miller. Don't know if I knew that. And then in season 2 forward is Eric Bauza. So
Yes.
Ezra Miller didn't last long. Don't know if I knew he was in this in season 1.
I remember when he got recast because it was right in the middle of the controversy.
Yeah.
So I remember the timing of him being recast. But yeah.
Man. Let's see. The Guardians of the Globe. Let's run these guys down. Rudy. This is Rudolph, Rudy, Rex Connors, the robot voiced by Zachary Quinto, and Rudy's original body, and Ross Marquand as Rudy's clone body, and Jason Mantzoukas as a future version. Jason Mantzoukas is also Rex Sloan / Rexplode, which Jason Mantzoukas, man in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, is a legend. Freaking love that guy. Dude, is Rex really gone? It kind of feels like he's really gone.
Yeah, one of the most tragic deaths of the show so far because another one. It felt earned. His redemption after the first 2 seasons felt earned. And not to say that he was a totally bad guy. He was a complicated guy.
Sure.
And it seemed like he was finally starting to get together. He was happy. And with the scene where he was saying, man, I'm happy. I'm happier than when I've ever been. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
We've read comics and we've watched these things long enough to know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime someone says that, you're like, oh, brace yourself. It's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to great Zachary Quintos, another guy that has been in a bunch of genre stuff, whether it be Heroes or the J.J. Abrams Star Trek stuff, which I thought he was great in those
I did
movies with
too.
Spock. And I think he's great here as a voice actor.
I'm not so married to Star Trek that they can't do whatever they want. I don't really care. I don't really care anyway, but I am not married to anything in Star Trek. I appreciate the source material and I grew up watching the show, but I am not like, how dare they do blah, blah, blah. I don't really care.
Yeah, as somebody that has seen a few episodes of the original Star Trek, I wasn't as married to it. Like, don't change anything. How dare you? And they had such a great cast for those movies. Like I said, Zachary Quintos, Chris Pine, and let's see, why am I drawing a blank who played Uhura in that movie?
Zoe Saldana, wasn't it?
That's right, Zoe
Yeah.
from Guardians of the Galaxy fame.
The Butcher, Billy the Butcher's in it too. Can't forget Judge Dredd.
That's right. Carl Urban is also in it. The great
Yeah,
Carl Urban. He's fantastic.
he is.
I thought the cast for that movie was so good that I was like, why are people so down on this? Like, why do people hold some of these things so dear? It's strange. But I love the first movie. I think the first movie is very good.
I do
Um,
too.
a-
Totally.
and I mean, the second movie is not as good, but I enjoyed it. Um, and I thought this third movie was also very good. I like that franchise, and I wouldn't be mad if they did a fourth one.
I agree. Chris Hemsworth as Chris Pine's dad was a nice touch.
Yes, also great. The late great Anton Yelchin, who's
Hmm.
also great in there.
Oh wow, yeah,
Rest in peace to him. He was fantastic in those first two movies.
yeah. He was in a great film. I'm trying to remember what the movie was, but it was about this kid, and it was a school shooting. Do you know the movie I'm talking about?
Are you talking about Alpha Dog?
No, 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 no. It's a very tragic, and it's also got the guy that was Doctor Manhattan in Watchmen, and he was also in Almost Famous.
Yeah, I know for sure he's an Alpha Dog, and it's about the kid that got kidnapped and eventually killed at the end, which is very
Mm.
sad. And that movie had Justin Timberlake in it as this lead, and Emil Clark, which man, whatever happened to that guy's career? Oof.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
At one point, he looked like the next up and comer, man. and oof.
Yeah, this was it was a school shooting, and he was actually the kid, I believe. Well, he's in the film as another character, but he's great in that movie too. And it's the main character was Doctor Manhattan Watchman, and he was also in well, it was in Almost Famous,
Yeah,
and as the lead guitarist who was too pretty. Remember?
yeah,
I'll say it. Your looks are becoming a problem. What a great line in a movie. I freaking love that line.
yes. Yeah. What a tragic loss. I don't want to jump into. I don't want to continue to derail the conversation. But what a
Yeah.
tragic loss, Anton Yelchin. He was so great in those movies as Chekhov, and it seemed like he had a bright future. Man, just sad.
Was he sick? What was it that happened? Or was
It
he
was
was it
it was it was an accident.
mm.
He went. I believe the story was he went to his mailbox and he's backing his car out of the garage, and it somehow it wasn't in neutral, and it rolled back and ran over him.
Oh shoot. God.
Yeah,
I don't know if I knew that.
very sad.
By the way, Billy Crudup is the actor, and he played Russell in Almost Famous. We covered that movie. How in the world did I forget that? Didn't we do Almost Famous?
I don't remember.
My God, I thought we had. Dude, maybe oh my God, maybe we haven't. Maybe we were just talking about movie band soundtracks and stuff. Maybe that's why I remember us talking about him playing Russell. Yeah, it's a shame. We also have the Immortal, as we mentioned, was Ross Marquand. Rex Sloan, of course, we said was Jason Mantzoukas. Duplicate, great name, is Melise Zhao. And we've got Shrinking Ray and Rachel, played by Greg Griffin. We've got Amanda Monster Girl, also by Greg Griffin. And in human form, Kevin Michael Richardson in monster form. And we've got, Kevin Michael Richardson is back. He's also the Mahler twins. The Mahler twins are two of my favorite characters in the history of this show, dude. I love them. I love that they're smart but stupid at the same time.
Yes.
Freaking great, man.
Yeah, so many great recurring characters in the show.
Yeah. And there's comic book tropes happening with the characters, but I think they're so creative that I don't mind that they're tropes. It really doesn't bother me at all. I think there's enough creative characters here that I thoroughly enjoy how they're played. So let's see. The great Jay Farrow is here voicing Bulletproof. Carrie Payton is Black Samson, as we said earlier. Let's see. Cleveland Berto is Nightboy / Darkwing 2. Ben Schwartz is the Shapesmith. Richardson is, as we said, the Mahler twins. Fred Tatasori is Kilcannon Tatasori, which I'm always thinking I'm getting his name wrong as well. That guy's been around forever. Done a lot of voice animation. He's done Marvel stuff like the Hulk, Volstagg. He's done the Beast, Solomon Grundy. Guy's been around for a long time. And Mark Hamill, of course, is Arthur Rosenbaum. Did it strike you that Mark's got sort of like a smaller role. I kind of want him to be a main character, dude.
I think it's just Mark Hamill. It just feels like he gets a role and he does what we know him to do with roles, makes it his own, and we always want to see more of him. But I thought it was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. And let's see. Adam Wilkins is also Fred. Greg Griffin is also Betsy Wilkins. Michael Dorn, speaking of Star Trek, is Thok/Battle Beast. Mahershala Ali is Titan in season 1, and Todd Williams portrays Titan in season 3. Mahershala Ali's got to have one of the smoothest voices I've ever heard in my life. It's great.
Yes, I cannot hear the name Michael Dorn without thinking of the late great Dwayne McDuffie and his story about how Holly Berry thought he was Michael Dorn. So funny.
I think I know this story.
It's so great.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still exists online. I think he initially had it on his blog, which I don't know if it's still up. But if you have not read this story, guys, it's somewhere on the internet. I'm sure you can find it. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's a great story. I haven't seen it in a while, but I know what you're talking about. Let's see. We've also got Clancy Brown. Love Clancy Brown. SpongeBob fame, of course. Mr. Krabs. He plays Damien Darkblood. Clancy also does a lot of voice animation. Gary Anthony Williams is a newscaster. Jonathan Groff plays Rick Sheridan in season 1, and Luke McFarlane plays him in season 2 and forward. Sterling K. Brown, as we said, is Angstrom Levy. One of the most, and I was going to call him an evil character, but a lot of what Angstrom is doing is in response to what has been done to him, actually, which, his methods are terrible, but they're in response to what Invincible and his dad both have done to all these different realities, man, which is crazy. We know that Seth Rogen, I was going to say Seth Rollins, is, hey, well, you never know. Alan the Alien, love that guy. Cliff Curtis is Paul. The great, legendary Peter Cullen is Thaddeus. And the moment I heard him talk, I'm like, that's Optimus Prime. I know that voice when I hear it.
Yes.
I don't know that I knew that Tatiana Maslany is here as Taylor.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, that's the Coalition of Planets characters. Let's see. The Viltrum Empire, General Craig is Clancy Brown. Anissa is Chantel Van Santen. Let's see. The Great Phil Lamar is Lucan. Chris Diamatopoulos is back as Vidor. Greg Griffin is Thula. Conquest, of course, is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And The Order, Master Leo is played by Z Mao, I think. Machine Head is Jeffrey Donovan. Multi-Paul is Simu Liu. There you go, Shang-Chi himself. Connie/War Woman 2 is Mae Whitman. And then we've got a guest list. John Hamm is a guest. Max Burkholder, Lauren Cohen, as we said before. Lenny James, Reginald Vell Johnson is Principal Winslow at Reginald Vell Johnson High School, which is a nice wink and a nod. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Nicole Byer is a guest. Let's see. Stephen Root, the great Stephen Root. He's here as well. Lance Reddick, another great actor. Lance Reddick is a guest. Let's see. Leah Thompson. Man, look at the list of these guys, man. Rob Delaney. Paul F. Tompkins is here. Tim Robinson is here. Josh Keaton is here. Ella Purnell. Chloe Bennett. Bokeem Woodbine is here as Radcliffe. Don't know if I knew he was on the show.
Yeah. I believe, doesn't Josh Keaton play the Spider-Man character?
Agent Spider, yes.
He does. Yeah.
Really good. He was also Shiro in Voltron Legendary Defender. By the way, I vouch for that show. That is a great freaking show.
Yes.
And he has also done the voice of Spider-Man in various projects.
Right. That was the nod of him being the voice behind the Spider-Man parody character on the show.
I love when he pops in. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, you don't even know why I'm here. He's like, oh, no, I get it. Multiverse, you're here in your universe. Trust me, I've been dealing with that a lot lately. That was well done. I really appreciated that. Jonathan Banks is a guest also. Man, that guy's born to play a villain, buddy, let me tell you. And Bruce Campbell as a demon. He's here as well. Aaron Paul, as you said, is Pyroplex. Man, good gracious. let's see. Season 1 kids had 8 episodes. Season 2 and 3 also had 8 episodes. Season 3 just recently wrapped March 13th, 2025. Again, Phil, I don't know enough about the books to know what they're doing or what they've done. Again, I think Omni-Man's dead in the books, but I cannot swear to it. I believe he is. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on. Dude, we kicked this show off today with me sort of opining on this idea of the deconstruction of the superhero genre. Like, we know Alan Moore perfected it, and then everyone that's came after him has kind of, told the same story. Marvel did it with Squadron Supreme in the 80s as well, which was sort of an answer to that. I mean, The Boys, it's been done, of course. There's been other books that have tackled it. Invincible tackles it.
Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you.
In your opinion, is that as tired? Like, this idea of superhero fatigue, we've been hearing it for years, but they're still making the IP, which tells me that people are wrong, perhaps, in their assertion of that. But what do you think about the flip side of that coin? Is there too much of that? Do you think you need a balance of the two, or what do you think?
I definitely think at one point there was too much of it. And it was really right after the boom of those kind of comics, whether it be the Frank Miller stuff or what Alan Moore did. And at one point, it was just way too much of people trying to do the deconstruction or like the very dark and gritty stories. And I definitely got tired of it as a reader. But I think the great thing about this show is it does it in such a different way. There's so much heart to this show as well, and there's so many ways where they could take these characters way far left, but they still have like characters like Eve and other characters that also are like, I don't want to say like typical comic book characters, but they do have enough to make you immerse in this world, and it's just not just like all grim and dark.
Yeah, because, dude, look, we said it before on the show. At the end of the day, comic books were made for kids originally. I don't know, man. It's just this, that was my primary complaint with the whole scorched earth approach from, the wacky dude that they handed DC to, that we've covered here multiple times on the 6M, Zack Snyder. I just think it can be too much. And it's like, well, we need to make them, but you don't need to do anything. Like, there's got to be, I mean, I think Kevin Smith said it best. I recently, one of his shows, something to the effect of, I need my superheroes to have an element of comic book in them. They can't, and it's this idea of, we have to make this so realistic. It looks like real life. What would happen if in real life? And Kevin's like, I get that, but at the same time, I need a comic book element to my superhero, productions. Otherwise, it's forcing it into the real world when it doesn't really belong in the real world to begin with.
Yes. Because I think that someone like Alan Moore, for example, he wanted to tell us very specific standalone story with Watchmen. And it served its purpose. It was so brilliant for that time period that multiple people then came behind him and tried to replicate what he did. But the thing is, that was never really meant to be this serial product. It was meant to be this standalone elsewhere story where he told his story and got in and got out. When you're telling a story in that tone, in the confines of comic books, like as a serial genre, it just doesn't really work because it goes against everything he's actually saying. He's saying in the Watchmen miniseries of, hey, all of this stuff that you love about comics, it's kind of nuts and it doesn't really work. Like, it doesn't make logical sense. And so when you try to add that to comics as a genre and try and continually do it, it's just not going to work long term. And I do think there are great ways you can deconstruct comics and deconstruct comic book tropes, but you've gotta do it in a reasonable way. Like we've seen Kirkman do it. We've seen other great creators do it in a way that's interesting. If it's just all gloom and doom and there is no upside, there is no swerve, there is no turns, then that's boring. Like, why would you want that? Uh, so yeah, when people are like, Dark Knight Returns and the Frank Miller stuff is the seminal Batman comic, and that's like their ideal Batman story. I disagree every time. Like those stories have their place, but to say that those are the defining Batman comics, boy, do I disagree.
Hmm. So, I don't know, man. Like, Frank Miller deserves a ton of credit, for Dark Knight Returns, of course. It is a masterpiece, right? The original Watchmen is a masterpiece. Frank Miller's run on Daredevil is a work of art. I mean, these things open the doors in mainstream Hollywood that had been closed for a long time or that Marvel could never just barely crack open. So I see the need for it. But like you said, if it's so a downer and it's like so intense and like I'm thinking at some point, then why did we need superheroes to tell this story? Couldn't this story have been any occupation or any form of, you could have set this in space. You could have set it in any time period. It could have been the
Yes.
Romans. It could have been anything. Like, why continue to sort of bastardize the superhero comic book concept just to tell a story of, hey, well, they're naked. Check that out. See the hardcore sex and see the death and the violence and the guts hanging out. Like, all right, this is fun. I'm like, is it fun, really? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I just don't think that it has its place. And when everybody is attempting to do it, it's not as interesting. But you could say that with anything. If
sure.
everybody was trying to do like wacky, out there ideas like a Chip Zdarsky, then it would get tired. No, we don't want to just continue to read or watch the same depiction of something over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think comic books like towards the end of the 2000s coming into uh this decade, that was what made comic books so great is that you had so much variety. You had so many different creators doing so many different kinds of comics. You didn't have to stick with like the Image stuff and the very dark and gory stuff if you didn't want to read that. Um, you could go and read what Rick Remender was doing somewhere else. You could read what Bendis was doing, or you could read what so many other creators doing, Al Ewing or so many other guys that were telling completely different stories. Eh, you're not going to find everybody that writes things the way like Paul Cornell does, or I was about to say a name that I think is canceled. So
Yeah, no, I think I know who you're probably going to say. Yeah.
we won't say that one.
It's a shame we can't talk about him anymore because but he doesn't really need to be talked about. But yeah, geez.
Yeah, but I say all that to say that I don't need all of those depictions all the time, but that doesn't discount people that did those things very well. I won't say the name of the creator, but what Planetary was at one point and how that affected comics. And even like so many other creators that made those kinds of books, they have their place and it helped comic books evolve.
Hard to argue that. You're right. I continue to look at how, the main publishers continue to go down that road. And it's not Marvel doing it. Honestly, I know Marvel has went there in moments, but like, DC, this Injustice stuff, they just keep going back to this Injustice thing. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, well, they're going to turn and he's going to be evil. And I'm like, yeah, but why? Why do we keep, oh my God. Sometimes I feel like it's a one-trick pony. And, this is why I really, really want that new Superman movie to be a hit, dude. I want this thing to be great. And I don't mean let's compare it to Christopher Reeve. I don't mean that. I just mean like, let's get a fresh take. Let's make this what it should be. That Superman is not a bad guy. his suit should not be dark red and dark blue. His suit should absolutely have the trunks. Why not? Like,
Yeah.
I'm so excited for what James Gunn has done, and I hope this thing is a hit, dude.
Yeah, it's odd because we're talking about this and how the main core story here is that Mark is the difference. He's the one out of all of the Marks in the rest of this multiverse that decided not to be evil.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you getting all of these multiverse versions of a character, and people fall in love with something like Sinister Mark, and it's like, well, that's the interesting Mark. I want to follow that guy. No, that's not the point. You're supposed to like the good Mark. And I've seen people do this where I like a darker Superman. Like, no. The Superman that is like the main core Superman, that's the guy you're supposed to be into. We've gotten tons of things like, Red Sun, where we got the Soviet Superman, or Superboy Prime, or we've gotten so many alternate Supermans and Superboys, and people were like, but I like this character more. It's like, I get it. I get that there's a part of fandom that wants to root for the bad guy, but I think we got to keep these things in perspective. They're still the bad guy.
Still the bad guy. This fascination people have with, like, Darth Vader and the Joker. We have talked about this too, about how bad guys should just be bad guys. We don't need to romanticize them, man.
Yes. And I mean, look, I love when we get stories where we get more layers to characters.
Sure.
We get to find out more about what make characters stick. I mean, what makes these characters tick, but that doesn't mean that they're now the protagonists of the story.
Right.
And we've seen that in multiple turns with things like reimagining of properties like Wicked, like, and how Wicked reimagined the Wicked Witch, and those things are great. They're interesting, but I think it's also gotten the sect of fandom to think, oh well, it's all a matter of perspective. Yeah, yes, sometimes, but sometimes somebody is just a bad guy.
Yeah, and again, I know we've talked about this, but Thanos had a point. No, he didn't. What are we talking about? Like, mass genocide is not a point. It's not. What?
Not a stance. It's not a defendable stance. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not a stance. It's not an opinion you can feel okay about. Like, no. Thanos had a point. No, he didn't. And if you think so, you're effing weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think it's funny every time I see the tweet about Ultron, and it's hard to disagree. Ultron's alive for a little while. He takes one look at the internet and he's like, "Yeah, mankind's got to go." And I was like, "Boy, I get it."
Yeah. He's like, "Yep, it's over." Well, you're not wrong.
These people cannot be saved.
No. The internet will get us killed if the doofus running the show don't get us killed first. So enjoy your entertainment while you can, kids, while you got time to watch it, because that those missiles may be on the way. And I ain't trying to be funny. I'm just, we are heading down some dark paths. Talk about stories that go dark. My goodness.
Yeah, but I think all of this is variety.
Yeah.
I can enjoy something that's dark and that can deconstruct things. Like, big fan of Watchmen, and what that graphic novel and that time period did. Like, but I do think some people learned the wrong lesson from it.
Yeah, like Rorschach is not a good dude.
No. No. The point of the Rorschach character is that he's not a good guy. None of the main characters are good people. I think some people miss that part. But I think it's the confusion of what is a protagonist and what is a hero. Like, just because someone is the main protagonist of the show or a book or something doesn't mean that they're a good person. Like, that was the thing for a long time with Sopranos, and I've seen people defend Tony. Like, wait a minute, Tony Soprano is very much a bad person. That's the point of the show.
Really? Yeah, I mean, I would thought that would be obvious, but Tony is. And dude, I know you're a big fan of the show. I watched it. I've only watched it one time all the way through. I've never went back and binged the series again. but like with every episode, I'm like, Tony's irredeemable. I don't know.
Yes.
And you know what's funny is that I watched the whole series. I did not watch it. But with every episode, I'm thinking, I don't really know why I'm watching this. Like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the acting. I appreciate the writing. But with each episode, you know me, I'm the guy that wants the good guy to win in the end. That's just me. People can laugh at that. I don't care. It's how my brain, I'm just wired that way. But I'm thinking, this is not going to end well. This guy needs a bullet in the head. He's a horrible person. He's put his family in danger. They kill indiscriminately. They call themselves a family. We all know that's BS. The mob is not family. It is stop. It's I got to get mine. We're going to get rich. We're going to make money, and I don't care who we got to kill to make it. That is not a family, kids.
No.
But you know, like, and every episode, I'm like, Tony is not a good person. Why am I still watching the show? I don't understand why I'm still watching the show. And I watched all the way to the end. And I was the guy thinking, well, good, let him come in and shoot him. He needs to be gone. This needs to end with his death.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm still shocked that there are people that think that ending is bad and they don't understand what the ending means. No, he's gone. People that are like, well, what happened? He's dead.
Yes, he's dead. Are you kidding?
He's dead. Yeah. And it's just a testament to the great job that David Chase did with all of those characters on that show of humanizing them. These are not really redeemable characters, but he showed us so many different sides of these characters that made it a fascinating show. But again, that doesn't mean these are good people.
No.
I mean, I think that is also like the mark of great TV, because you could definitely make the argument that The Sopranos and the high mark of HBO at one point changed television for the better.
Yeah, I mean, layered storytelling, complex storytelling, right? I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes something like this show or The Boys work as well. I do think that there is a line, and sometimes gratuitous can go too far. But so far, this show hasn't really done that for me.
No, it hasn't. I question for myself, if this were a live action show, would I have tapped out by now? Like, I would hope that Mark would have kept me here. I would have hoped that Eve would have kept me here, that Mark's mom. By the way, we never even mentioned Sandra Oh as Mark's mom. Totally skipped over. Didn't mean to do that.
Yes.
Great job. I'm not a Grey's Anatomy person at all. That show's wasn't made for me. But, you know, I think she does a great job. But I would hope that those characters would keep me here. But there's moments when I question if they would have kept me here. Like, I don't know. Can't answer that. Speaking of live action, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what are your thoughts on live action Invincible? It seems like it's going to happen, or that, you know, why shouldn't it happen at some point? I mean, do you stick with the series? Do you stick with the books? Do you do a mix of the two? How do you think it would be handled?
Well, if I remember correctly, the series is over, isn't it? And I think that's another thing that distinguishes Invincible. Not just the fact that it does, some of the same deconstruction concepts, but it's also a book that allows its characters to age and, grow old and have children, and it has an end, has a definitive end. And I think that's one of those things that makes it easy to adapt it, because there is an end to it, and there is a steady arc that goes all the way to a certain point. With most comics, you're trying to pick and choose, okay, what arcs, what stories do I like that I want to make into something that stands alone, because it keeps going. I mean, that I think that's one of the things that has in some ways harmed Spider-Man, is that there is no happy ending because the story has to keep going.
That's fair. Yeah, there can't be a, we're all done, because
Yes.
that character's a comic book character, and it's not. It's because it's part of the big two. Even if Marvel said today, we're done, dude, Spider-Man be back in 6 months, if not sooner.
Yeah, it's a serial comic. It makes too much money. There's no
Yeah.
way that they're gonna stop making Spider-Man comics. And even if it's not starring Peter Parker for a few months or even a year, Peter will eventually be back.
Yeah.
Because that's just how comics are. Uh, But and I mean, yeah, we could get into like the controversy around One More Day and how much people hated that, but that's because of what comics are and how, he's not allowed to grow old. He's not allowed to have a family or a happy ending. Um, but I think that's why I could see this show doing so well and continuing to do well.
Mm.
And because of the success of the show, I think it's inevitable that we're going to get a movie. I don't know when, but I think it's definitely going to end up being a live action movie at some point because it kind of feels like at one point, like Spider Man is a perfect example. I keep using Spider Man as an example, but it's such a perfect example because so many people found out about Spider-Man in so many different ways. Like there are people that were introduced to him through the comic, or there are people that were introduced to him through the animated series or something else. But at the height of his popularity in the 90s from the animated series, like we weren't thinking about this at the time as kids, but there was no way you couldn't take something that popular and turn it into a movie. And it feels like the same thing here. This is so popular and has such a big audience. I don't see how it doesn't happen.
It just makes sense. And dude, the tech is there. Like we're so far advanced where we were 20 years ago with CG. And I mean, it's, at this point, this Invincible movie could be made. I can't say easily, but could absolutely be made with the tech we have now and look good and look believable and look realistic and, the whole nine. You know what I'd be afraid of? I'd be afraid that whoever this was handed to would not take the spirit of the animated series with it or the spirit of, like we said earlier, yes, this can be bloody. Sure, it can be the Zack Snyder scorched earth approach, I guess. It's fine. But like if you lose the heart of Mark, if you lose that, that big battle between him and his dad, when even in the end, he's telling his dad, please don't do this. Like he's begging him. And I'm like, dude, if you lose that, then it's not, it's not the same characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, they've got a big franchise here. I don't see a world where this doesn't eventually become a movie. And the cartoon is so successful now that I don't see it happening alongside it, but somewhere down the line, I definitely think this is going to spawn a movie.
And I'll just be curious how it'd be cast. I mean, I can't even venture to guess who would be Mark because, you need an actor at least within a few years of Mark's actual age. And now we're talking, by the time they decide to do this, who knows? But like, I mean, if you cast it today, would Chalamet be Mark? I don't know. Like, maybe. I don't know. I kind of feel like, here's the thing too, Phil, is that, this wouldn't have the pressure of a Marvel film. Like, Marvel's done a fantastic job of mixing, sort of unknowns with established actors. But like, you think that Image, whoever would be behind this, would go for the name recognition on all the characters? Or you think there'd be a better off doing like a mix like Marvel typically does?
I think they've got a chance to do this and do like a cinematic universe because, of course, that was the thing I thought with the Invincible Wars, with the way that it's used here. This is a massive Image crossover where we're getting all of these characters from the other books here in this book, and so that's why I was surprised when we saw Tech Jacket because we didn't see Savage Dragon and we didn't see some of the
Mm.
other characters like Spawn here. Um, but if you wanted to eventually do this as a movie, you've got a chance to do something like that.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, with it being creator owned, I assume it's creator owned with every property we're talking about here. I love the idea of another universe, and I don't not because I dislike Marvel. I love Marvel. I've made that clear. Like, and I hope that Gunn's new universe kicks off, and I hope it's great. I'd be here for that. I mean, I'm kind of waiting for the Dark Horse universe to happen, and it hasn't happened yet. But Valiant's not happened yet. There was rumors that Valiant was going to happen, and that's not come to pass. But I don't know, Phil. It seems like maybe it'd be a case as with the first Iron Man, where like, hey, we're going to do this Invincible film, and if this thing makes money, then we'll move forward.
Yeah, but I mean, Marvel as an entity with Disney behind it is such a different beast. I
Mhm.
can't see Image like starting like this big movie studio to make all of these movies and have them under the same umbrella. Um, it's just two different business models.
That's true. Marvel. All right, so we know that Jim Lee sold Wildstorm to DC. Image is still independent comic
Hmm.
publisher, and they're still number 3. They have not been sold to anyone, which is great. They're still who they are, which is fantastic. Hopefully, we'll never see the day when they sell to somebody. So yeah, I don't know what this means like for their media outlets. I don't know because I mean, of course, as we know, Phil, no matter who the creators are, and if you own the properties for the comics, that's great. But if the rights for the characters for a movie get sold to a certain studio, now the rights are tied up. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But well, look, I've been happy with this. I don't know how many seasons we've got to go. I don't know if they have a number, if they think it's 5, if they think it's 6, if they don't have a, if they're just going to go along and keep making these or whatever. But I'm already looking forward to season 4, which could be 3 years, Phil, because I don't know if you saw it, but that new Spider-Verse film isn't going to hit till 2027.
Yeah. Uh,
Man,
yeah.
draw faster. No, I know. I'm just saying it's computer. It's fine. But like, I don't know. I'm just so impatient, man. I'm just so impatient.
Yeah, I would listen. I would rather they take the time and make quality films than rush them out and, put animators and a bunch of people through a lot of constraints just to get something on the screen to make money.
I guess, but I'm getting older.
I
Let's go.
guess.
No, you're not wrong. I'm just getting old. Let's go, man. I just want it now, I'm one of those guys. Oh, it just ended. Great. When's the next one come out? I can't help it. I mean, again, we assume season 4 is coming. So I'll be anxious to see how it all goes down. Well, kids, there you have it. There's Invincible. And this was a broad overview of the series, as we kind of said it would be. And we didn't dive into season specifically or storyline specifically. We mentioned characters and we mentioned sort of the flow of how the basic story goes. I never really asked you what you thought about the plot. This villainous father whose real purpose, whose real mission gets found out, and he's got this son. And dude, there's some very Shakespearean elements of this story happening along the way. I love the idea of it. I can't say it's original. There's really no such thing as original. So it's elements here of other things as well. But I've always enjoyed the story, man. I think without the story, we've just got another, bloodbath, punchy series. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to flip the trope of Superman coming to Earth on its head
Yeah.
and having, what if Superman came to Earth as an adult with the express mission to take over the world. And then he had a son, and his son has all of this thrust on his shoulders. Like, I think that's such an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, I agree. And look, Phil mentioned Superman. We talked about creators. Never forget, kids, without Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, we're not sitting here talking about this more than likely. Like
Yes.
2 Jewish kids that didn't look like they were going to create one of the most, you know, enduring or, just long lasting, immortal characters that is Superman. And that entire comic universes have been built around the concept of, all powerful and doing the right thing and helping people and super speed and flying. And, again, just an artist writer combo that, from out of nowhere, freaking nuts, man. And here we are to this day, still talking about these books and these movies and these streamers. Well, there you have it, kids. There's Invincible. Stay tuned for season 4. We will be for sure. Phil, before we get out of here, let's get your last word on Invincible.
Yeah, just a really good show. Love to see the success of it. Love what that means for creator-owned comic books. Love what that means for independent creators. I hope that things like this create lanes for more creators, and so they don't have to rely on going to one of these big two companies and, helping to boost somebody else's creations and IPs. They can, aspire to go and create their own characters and tell their own stories and, get the compensation they deserve off of them.
Yeah, I agree. We are always creator first here, kids. Remember, without the creators, you don't have any of this. Um, you can't really, and I can't say publishers because, again, without the guys doing the creating, the publishers wouldn't have anything. All these publishers would be out of business today,
Yes.
if not for these creators, man.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's something to be said about how there's such a focus on intellectual properties, and it's not just so much about telling stories. Sometimes it's telling a story that can become an IP that could be sold off to something. And I don't think that that was entirely the idea behind Image and something like Invincible, but I do appreciate that when Invincible did become an intellectual property, it is Kirkman and creators like Ryan Otley behind this that are getting their credit, and they are hopefully getting compensating correctly.
Mm. Yeah, I would say Robert Kirkman's worth some money.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Again, I'll be interested to see how they play out the next season and what becomes of this show as we move forward. And again, kids, we'll look forward to the movie because I'm sure there's going to be one at some point, and we'll see if they get the Image verse off the ground. And to be fair, it may not be something they even care to do. I don't know, but if there's money to be made, the studio sees dollar signs, they're going to find a way. And if the creators are on board, they'll find a way. And from a purely selfish standpoint, I'd love to see it because I'm a fan of this stuff. I'm a fan of this genre. So we will see what happens, kids, and stay tuned for more to come here on the show and, of course, from Image as well. But in the meantime, that is Invincible.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.